we walked through the space. Oh, there we go.
No, magic.
Well, I don't know if it was magic, but it was Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Okay, good evening. Let's try this again. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. My name is Mark Segrist, and I'm the chair of the Cumberland Town Council. We're here, obviously, for a tri-community meeting, the meeting between the Cumberland Town Council, the North Yarmouth Select Board, and the MSAD 51 Board of Directors. So I thought maybe to start off, it might make sense to just very quickly go around the room, just list your name and which board or council you're with, just for everybody to get to know each other. But I'll start here to my right, and maybe we'll go around the room this way.
Great, thanks, Mark. Thanks for welcoming us. I'm Leanne Candora, the chair of the MSAD 51 School Board.
And I am Kim Vine, the vice chair.
Jeff Porter, superintendent of MSAD 51.
Scott Poulin, I'm the Director of Finance, Human Resources, and Operations for MSAD 51.
I'm Chris Boldick. I'm the Assistant Town Manager for the Town of Cumberland.
Bailey Douglas, Cumberland Town Council.
Ron Kopp, Cumberland Town Council.
Bob Vale, Cumberland Town Council.
Kit Maloney, North Yarmouth Select Board.
Denny Gallaudet, School Board.
Annika Hole, School Board.
Megan Lichter, School Board.
Tom McGinnis, School Board.
Sophia Duenas, School Board Student Representative.
Tommy Leggett Barr, School Board Student Representative.
Christina Mitchell, School Board.
And Tim Valenti, School Board.
I'm Steve Blatt. I'm the architect working on the new elementary school. And I'll try to speak right into this.
Thank you.
Paul Hodgetts, North Yarmouth Select Board.
Diane Barnes, North Yarmouth Town Manager.
Amy Hale, Chair of the North Yarmouth Select Board.
Tig Filson, Vice Chair, Cumberland Town Council.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that. That was kind of a mic check as well as just to get to know everybody. So I think for the agenda tonight, obviously, it was just to welcome and introduce ourselves for folks who don't know us. And then we wanted to start a little bit. I know the primary point of the meeting tonight is to talk about the proposed new school on campus, and so I think we're all excited to hear about that. But very quickly, we just wanted to touch base on what's happening in Cumberland as well as what's happening in North Yarmouth. So I'd like to maybe pass it over to Amy Hale from the North Yarmouth Select Board.
Thank you, Mark. So we have in North Yarmouth a couple different I would say projects happening, none that really bump up against the school board or Cumberland quite so much. We have a open space committee that we are starting to accept applications for, which we're really excited about. Last night we had a great climate action plan forum. We're working on that with GP Cog. So. That's something that's happening in North Yarmouth, and we also are looking into some sidewalks. We have a sidewalk plan that we are working through our EDSC committee to work with residents to prioritize the different projects, the different sidewalk areas. So that's all very exciting. But the most exciting thing that happened recently is we have a fancy new fire truck, and by fancy, I mean it works. So we're really excited, and so Cumberland, if you need anything, we got you.
Awesome, thank you so much. On the Cumberland side, just very quickly, I wanted to focus on some capital projects that are in the pipeline. I know right now, if you've driven down the streets or seen anything, there's obviously a lot of talk and discussion and signs about affordable housing, which has obviously been a really big project here in town. It's not necessarily a capital project, given the fact that the town's not going to be constructing or taking the costs on to build any projects should that referendum move forward. But projects on the horizon, in less than 3 years, the town will be able to pay off fully the solar field that we have on the former dump here on town property. And the energy costs for all town facilities at that point within the next 3 years will basically go to zero, which is wonderful. So thanks for everyone who pushed that project forward to get it where it is today. There's also 3 major culverts on Greeley Road. I've talked to our assistant town manager about those. Those are really kind of on the entrance to Twin Brooks on the Greeley Road side. There's also potential water main to West Cumberland to get water over the turnpike for fire protection purposes, for the aquifer, and for potential affordable housing. That's going to be before the planning board this month, maybe next month, I believe. Normal paving plans will also continue. There's also the Tuttle Road Bridge over 295 and Route 1 that's expected to go out to bid in 2025. And then we should also hear about the Route 100 proposed roundabout in May sometime if we're going to receive funding for that. So those are just the updates here from the town of Cumberland. Maybe we can go on now to the star of the show here this evening and talk a little bit about the proposed pre-K through 1 school with Mr. Stephen Blatt, our architect. So I don't know, maybe I'll pass it to you, the chair of the school board, Leanne Kandura.
So Leanne's not the star? Not tonight.
Well, thanks, everyone. Before we throw it to the main event, which I'm very excited for, I just wanted to bring everyone sort of up to speed of how we got here from our October meeting. We were really pleased that the conversation that we had at the last joint session in October, where we were able to both talk about the new school project that had been designed in North Yarmouth, was still on the table, still under consideration, but we thought we had an opportunity with the new land that became available via our voters in June adjacent to the campus to really give it a hard look to see if we had an opportunity to offer our communities an on-campus plan. And so that's really kind of the setup for today's conversation. And I just wanted to review a couple, I'm a process person, so I just wanted to go through a few process steps of what's happened since that conversation in October to both set us up for today's discussion, which we're really just looking for. This is a draft. Everything we're talking about today is still being worked out in process. And so we welcome questions, conversations, discussions. I'm not really the one who's going to be answering all the questions, so hopefully you're set with answering a lot of those discussions. But I just wanted to at least set the stage for this conversation and sort of where we are in process today, which is a draft, but a lot of work has gone into getting us to this draft. And so the first is to both really understand and relook at the enrollment studies and the numbers and the projections. I will be showing a few graphs because I can't help myself of the enrollment, both past and projected in the future. So we've been using that as part of our process and continue to talk with the towns around what their future planned development is in order to inform those projections. The Facilities Committee has played a huge role in helping us both review conduct architect interviews that led to the selection of Blatt and Associates. And so they voted on December 1st to recommend the concept design contract, which the board approved on December 4th. So a lot of work has happened between February, now we're mid-February, and December 4th to get ready for what we're presenting today. In addition to just looking at the building itself, we knew that if we were going to continue invest in the one campus, that there was other things that needed to be addressed on campus to make it viable. So we're also continuing to look with the superintendent and Scott to look at what are the other on-campus adjustments and upgrades to sustain a one-campus model, and I'll provide a few updates there as well. And to work with both the town of Cumberland and MDOT on infrastructure and offset requirements to ensure that what we're putting forward is viable with those two entities as well. And then, of course, work to develop a financial plan and timeline. We will be presenting, again, draft budget tonight. We are not scheduled to vote on it as a board until March, so we're still in conversation. And that's part of why I thought coming back to this group in February was so important because it is a draft, and we want all of our community members and community leadership to understand what the draft plans are and to ensure that we're able to take in feedback around where we are in process. And just some of the other items that we're working on is related to the long-term facilities plan, and then obviously planning a referendum date and then community engagement. So like I promised, here's some graphs. So this one is a bit old, but we just wanted to contextualize like how we got to this point where we are now. In this graph display, you can see it starts in 2004 and goes to 2020 and indicates, what past enrollment was and what decisions were along the way around enrollment and closing other buildings. And so we are not at our peak enrollment, which was back around 2004. Our current enrollment, which I'll show you in a moment, has still not reached that peak, but we are down a number of school buildings that have been closed in the process. And so when the last fourth building was closed, it was around the time when our enrollment was decreasing and a little around 2,000 students. And it's been increasing since the 2016-2017 school year. And so this is a bit of a longer range projection. On the left side of the graph, I know it's very small, is 2011. And then in the green, those are historical enrollment numbers, and in the blue, it's projected enrollment numbers. And so you can see where it had been steady and declining, and now we're on an upward projection through at least 2031. And so I just want to talk very briefly about what our actual enrollment is this year and how it was related to the projections that we've been using and planning from. So in this slide, the current overall school population for September 2023 was 2,201 students. The projected number was 2,183. It is lower than what the actual numbers were. So we are 42 students higher than the projections, but it was a lower kindergarten class. So it's something we're certainly looking at, but overall, students increase was across all of the grade spans with a younger, lower kindergarten class coming in. So these are some updated numbers comparing two different studies. So what you'll see is there's a few things on this. There's both columns representing two studies, our consultant, Wandel Consulting, and then the NASDAQ, and I do not know what that acronym stands for. I know Jeff does, but they provide as part of the service for our membership. I'm sure one of the E's is education, is their own projections for us to also have another comparison point. So we look at both projection studies and then have done the different grade spans that we're looking at. And what you can see, the blue columns, if you can see the blue, is from the Wandel Consulting. The yellow columns are from the NASDAQ study. And we've tried to separate it out by the various grade spans that we're looking to, if we went to the on-campus model, the grade spans would be pre-K 1, 2 to 4 at MIW, 5 to 8 at GMS, and 9 to 12 at GHS. And we try to highlight where the largest class is going to be over the next, I think it's a little under 10 years. So as you can see, both studies project increasing enrollment from now until the 2033-34 school years. And each of the different buildings would max out over time. So it starts with the younger grades and then it moves up through the district. And so these are some of the numbers that we've been working from when thinking about sizing of schools, grade spans, where they fit, and wanting to ensure that if we are planning a new school, that it is going to have room to expand in the future. And so one of the things that as a board, and what we've heard from our communities, is that we do not want a building that when it opens is already almost full. And I know Stephen will highlight some of the features that will help assure that we're really planning for the future. So this is just some highlighting some of the one campus model the other investments in the campus that we were looking to make. And you'll see as part of the presentation, it's not just going to be about the school itself. It will be about looking at the entire campus. So we are looking at grade span shifts, other site adjustments, which includes updates to traffic flow and parking, looking at all the play and athletic spaces to ensure it can sustain the number of students that will be staying on the campus, moving of a maintenance building, that is where the new school would be built, and also understanding and looking at the long-term investments, again, to ensure that we're building for the future. All right, so now for the real main event, I'm going to be handing it over to Stephen Blatt, who is going to present the plans, the draft plans for the pre-K1, but also give an overview of what we're looking at for campus enhancements, and then touch on the budget as well. Stephen?
Okay, hi, everybody. I'm Steve Blatt. I lived here in Cumberland for 35 years and sent up all of our kids through your school system, and they're doing fine, so that's... I think I have a soft voice, so I have to stay close to this, but I want to be able to point out things. So I'd rather you hear me, even if I turn my back to you. Okay. We were asked to, 15 years ago, we were asked to design the middle school, which was a wonderful project. And they asked us to look at the entire campus, all of the buildings, all of the approaches, all of the surrounding environment. And so we worked on a master plan for the campus. And since then, we have designed the addition to the high school, which linked the original institute to the building. And then we were instrumental in getting you a new performing arts center, which I think is just such a wonderful magnet to the campus. We've also, at Scott's urging, looked several times at Mabel Wilson, and we did not design anything there, but we've been trying to help Scott and different superintendents look at the options and the opportunities in Mabel Wilson. So then, just 3 months ago, we were asked to look at an opportunity to build a new young folks school on this campus. And the most important thing, in my opinion, my humble opinion for an architect, is to understand the site and what the site has for potential and problems and advantages as a fairly permanent building and an inherent part of the middle of Cumberland. Ever since I moved here so long ago, I've always thought that the school campus was the center of town. Pat Carroll is a landscape architect with whom I've been working for about 30 years, and he was instrumental in designing the master plan. So I would like you to welcome him so that he can describe the site to you, and then we'll focus in on the actual building. Pat.
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me? So my name is Pat Carroll. I'm with Carroll Associates. We're landscape architects, land planners in Portland. And as Steve indicated, we've worked together for well over 30 years, actually. And we have worked together on the Greeley campus for probably well over 20 years. It started with the middle school, and as Steve indicated, we've been involved throughout any of the other projects that have occurred on the campus. So we were really delighted to be called upon to work with Steve again on this last piece of the puzzle, so to speak. So again, you know, back when we designed the middle school and we were asked to begin to look at the campus as a one campus, one school campus. Part of the criteria was really to begin to understand how these schools and the students related to each other, and trying to accommodate them both with circulation and visual kind of relationships, and also shared uses of athletic fields and play fields and playgrounds. And so that really led to the master plan. And I think the master plan's been pretty successful over the years with trying to keep everything kind of on campus, so that somebody, if they need to go from the middle school up to the high school, they can do so without having to get back out on Tuttle Road and running around to Main Street and in. So both for circulation, automobile circulation, school buses and so forth use this internal circulation. And clearly the students do, going back and forth between all the different facilities. We believe that's still pretty strong, as a pretty strong element, and it's really necessary to make this campus work. As you can see in the yellow, that's the new proposed school, and it really does begin to kind of form the four corners of the campus and begin to enclose it. And so it really wasn't possible to do that before the town acquired this property, or the district acquired this additional property last year. And once that was acquired, we've really been able to study this and really understand that, in fact, it does work. And so one of the things we're trying to do is utilize the existing infrastructure to the extent we can. And so I'm going to just, I don't know if I can point here with a pointer, or maybe I'll pull a Steve trick here.
The X where it says all tools, if you get rid of that X, you might be able to make it a little bigger too for folks
Sure.
to see. Just a suggestion.
Computer idiot here to kind of do this, so.
Tig Filson is the vice chair of Cumberland Town Council, and she's also our IT support sometimes too. So.
Because last time I tried to do this, the whole screen went blank.
I just want to make it a little bigger for, does that help at all? Is that too big?
Lovely.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, cool.
And then what about
you have a
something
pointer
to
situation?
point? I don't think we have a pointer up there, but maybe he can just use the mouse to.
Well, yeah, there's no pointer up here.
There's no pointer.
And this doesn't work, correct?
Scissors? I mean, at least like there's color, right?
Sure,
Yes, it's
that's
use
perfect.
Sightline, right?
Yeah. Great IT, I guess.
Sorry, you're gonna do a weapon.
So this is the new school. There's about a 3-acre parcel.
I think unfortunately we might need to have you speak into the microphone so folks watching this at home will be able to see.
I'll try to point as far as I
No,
can.
you're fine. I think also you could use the mouse, the cursor of the mouse, just to show where you're at. I know it's not as large, but maybe moving that around might be able to.
Try, let's see what happens.
Maybe not.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so this is the new school, proposed school. The existing school property basically ran across here like this. And this is about the original parcel was about 2.3 acres. And in looking at this, we were asked if it could fit, and we felt like the acquisition of a small triangle of land, about another half acre, would really help in kind of making this site work. So I think the board went ahead with that. I believe there was a decision last night on acquiring that property. So there's about almost a 3-acre parcel here that's directly adjacent to the school campus. This is the existing main entrance to the school campus off of Main Street. As I indicated, we intend to utilize as much of the existing infrastructure and circulation as possible. So this main entrance here will be maintained. And currently there's this existing parking lot that serves the PAC and the high school. Actually, this road comes in and sweeps over along the property line and through. And what we're trying to do here is we're going to we're going to reroute this driveway through here, which will make the circulation just a little bit cleaner, for one thing, but it also begins to separate some of the circulation associated with the new school from the high school. And there's still well over 80 spaces associated with the high school PAC, and I believe, my understanding is most of this is student parking right now. So that'll continue to happen. But it does create then an area that's really more or less dedicated to the new school for circulation. And we're showing some staff parking along the north side here, adjacent to the cemetery. There'd be a parent drop-off zone directly adjacent to the school here. Another parent drop-off zone on the inside of a bus loop, and the bus loop would really be right here. So buses would come in off of Main Street, they'd circulate in here, stop and load and unload, and then leave, and if they're going to the to Mabel Wilson, they would head down the driveway here and over. There's additional parking here that we think will probably get utilized by parents coming to pick up their youngsters at the end of the school day. So there's about 100 parking spaces associated directly with the new school. There's room for about 8 buses, and service would be in the back here. And as you can see, the rear of the school is totally separated from vehicular circulation, and that's where the little kiddos' playground areas would be. So we've got a dedicated playground area for K1 in the rear here, which is a really nice area because it's south-facing. It's going to be a really nice little sun pocket. Get a lot of sun and warmth in through there. And then the pre-K, and Steve will go through the floor plans in more detail, but the pre-K area is separated because they're such little guys that we try to keep them separate from the really what you're calling older kids, but they're really not older kids. They're just older than the little guys. So there's 2 separate playground areas here. The main entrance would be here, so it's highly visible, easy to locate upon driving in. You got a great visibility here, and there's also a really nice visibility and connection, visual connection across to the high school. And we see there's opportunities there for kind of students from the high school to come over and maybe mentor some of the kids. The kids could come over and utilize the PAC on occasions. And so we think that there's a real strong connection there. And we are providing a crosswalk and a sidewalk that makes that connection safe through here. There's been discussion about some other both on-site and off-site improvements. We really see this as an opportunity to correct some of the issues that have surfaced over the years, primarily off-site with traffic on Main Street and Tuttle Road, but also some on-site kind of circulation and traffic issues too. So let me see if I can. This next slide indicates we have about 9 different kind of sub-projects that we think are directly associated with this. Some more strongly than others, but number 1 would really be the new high school or the new pre-K school here. Number 2 and 3 would be off-site improvements to both Main Street and Tuttle Road. Main Street improvements are pretty simple. It's really a matter of just widening about 1,000 lineal feet of Main Street to provide a turn lane. I know it's kind of a mess in the mornings out there now, and we believe that widening will take care of that problem. On Tuttle Road, the thought is to both do some widening there to add another turn lane on Tuttle Road for circulation in and out of the campus, primarily for the middle school and Mabel Wilson, and also a sidewalk on the fire station side of Tuttle Road, which is lacking now, and I know that the town's been trying to do that for quite a while. So those 2 off-site improvements we see as really critical to the new pre-K school itself. Other on-site campus improvements, we're looking at Mabel Wilson and some of the circulation areas there. and whether perhaps moving the bus lane or bus drop-off from the south side of the school, off of the middle school drive, over to between the Mabel Wilson School and the administration building might make better sense, because then somebody coming in, a bus driver coming in, could drop off, swing down, and drop off again without having to go all the way out onto the middle school drive, or from the middle school drive back around to the main entrance again. So we're looking at that. We're looking at some improvements to parent drop-off areas. Maybe if the bus loop occurs kind of on the north side of Mabel Wilson, perhaps the student drop-off occurs in the linear lot that's adjacent to Tuttle Road. And perhaps we can eliminate the driveway coming in from for the bus lane, and recapture some of that for additional playfield space for Mabel Wilson. Other improvements include, we're looking at item number 7, which is the stormwater parking expansion. There's a bioswale, or a stormwater area was constructed as part of the Performing Arts Center. And I know that that's been aesthetically and visually, it hasn't been well received. There's a discussion now about perhaps putting that underground in chambers and paving over the top of it to create some additional parking space for event parking, or for even high school parking if necessary. So that is feasible to do, and we're looking at that in much more detail. Number 8 over here relates to, if in fact we think right now we have about a net gain of about 150 spaces on the site, 130 to 150 spaces. But if again there's a greater demand for more parking, we're looking at perhaps expanding the parking that's out in front of the teacher parking lot at the high school now, which is between the high school and Main Street. Actually, down in the lower right-hand corner is where the proposed maintenance facility will go. And I should have mentioned that that's really a critical piece of the puzzle too, because the maintenance facility currently is up here on the corner of the site where the new school wants to go, and it really has to get relocated. So we're looking at a location down in the lower right-hand corner, kind of out between the game field and the pool. It would be, ideally, we're looking at a 2-story building there, built into the slope, such that the upper story could be kind of bays and so forth for maintenance, and then down below could be where mowers and all the field equipment could be easily accessed at a lower level, just directly adjacent to the actual fields. And then finally, I know it's been talked about for many years, but part of this project is envisioning also creating a turf field and new lighting for the high school game field. I'll just quickly run through kind of just how this really works. This is the new school, and Steve's going to talk a little bit about that. There's a diagonal line here, and that shows the separation between the 2 parcels of land. So this little triangle here is the parcel that's being acquired from Mr. Campbell. The other parcel is about 2.3 acres, and that was acquired last year by the town. Again, the circulation comes in. This would be staff parking off to the right here. Parents coming in to drop off would bring their cars in, and then there would be a series of, I think it's about 10 or 12 parking spaces, parallel parking spaces, directly adjacent to the school. So they could drop off their students, pick up their students, or park and kind of run them in very easily. Bus loop is in the front. Main entrance here, and inside the bus loop, and this is similar to what occurs right now at the middle school with the bus loop, and then on the inside there's parent drop-off and parent pickup parking. So that's a very similar kind of situation there. Over to the right is visitor parking, or it could be parents, again, stopping, parking to come in and pick up their child. And in the back, you'll see there's a fairly large, I think it's about 7,000 or 8,000, 10,000 square feet of playground space that would be more than adequate for the younger kids. These are the proposed improvements at Mabel Wilson. Bus loop would come in here, and this is currently there's a loop in here, and this is where parents come in and drop off their kids at Mabel Wilson. We're thinking about flipping this and making this, bringing the buses in on this side of the building rather than on the south side. And I think Steve has talked about, or will talk about, perhaps moving the office from the south side of the building over here up to the other end of the building so that there's high visibility at that entry point. And this really becomes then kind of the main entrance into the school. So there's room here for the buses to come in and stack and park and load up. On the inside of that, again, there'll be a parent drop-off and parking places for parents to kind of park and walk their child in. The parking along along Tuttle Road would be reconfigured, and the thought was that we might look at changing the circulation pattern there. Right now it comes in and it's one way moving in this direction, but we're looking at maybe reversing that so it'd come in. This would be parallel parking drop-off here directly adjacent to the school with some staff parking or visitor parking on the outside of that. And we'd remove this driveway here and make a connection here so that service vehicles could come in, and this would be a dedicated service drive only. So that would remain like that, and then we could expand the playground area to towards the detention pond. We were asked about the possibility of doing something with that detention pond. I know nobody really likes it, except for the birders in the group. But it's, according to our engineer, it was designed before the stormwater law went into effect, and it probably doesn't meet any of the current stormwater regulations, and it would be outrageously expensive to try to kind of rework that to meet today's standards. So the thought is just clean it up and live with it. And again, these are the three items at the east end of the site. Parking expansion over in this existing parking lot here. The maintenance facility down at the lower right-hand corner adjacent to the pool, and then a new turf field. So those are really, it's kind of a wide range of both on-site and off-site improvements, but they're all really geared towards kind of providing the best location and environment for the new school, and also correcting some of the issues that have surfaced over the years on the campus. Any questions about that? Or I'll turn it over to Steve. Yes, sir.
The encroachment on Main Street will be to the
Bob, you
school
might want to
side, or-
speak in the mic just for folks at home.
The encroachment on the Main Street will be to the school side or to the northern side with your turning lane?
It doesn't really show there, but I think the intent is that it would be, there's actually encroachment right now into the right-of-way with some of the yards that are on the, not on the school side, but on the other side. And it would all be within the right-of-way. We're not really trying to take right-of-way, acquire right-of-way from either the school or the adjacent landowners. But there would be a widening that would occur along that way. And if you drive that street, you'll notice that it's widened where the first entrance into the campus is, here, and then it narrows down from about that entrance point down to the gas station. And that section through it, and then after the gas station, that was actually widened back, I think, when the high school work was done, maybe 15 years ago.
And how would your widening work on the Tuttle Road side?
The Tuttle Road would be, again, on the far side.
The fire station and the monument?
Yeah, it'd basically start at the fire station, I believe, and it would run down to about where the middle school driveway is, down through here. And it would be a widening to allow turn lanes and a sidewalk. And I should mention, we do have traffic engineers on the team, and they're just now starting to get into a lot of the detail about that, and, you know, their recommendations are clearly going to be pretty well kind of thought out. And they're also the same engineers that have been hired as a general service contract with the town of Cumberland. And so they're very familiar with what's going on in town, and they've actually studied the Tuttle Road site several times, so they have a good understanding of that.
Yeah, please.
Can you point out where the existing maintenance garage is?
Yeah, the existing maintenance garage is kind of right here.
Okay. Is there any concern on like how it's not central? I don't know what the flow of business is there, and I don't know if you're the right person to ask that question to, but just out of curiosity, what was the thought on putting it on the end of the campus there?
Well, we looked at other locations on campus for it, and as you know, it's becoming a pretty tight campus. There really isn't a lot of room, and that area is currently kind of underutilized. There's not much going on down there. We're not actually taking any parking away by building there. There's kind of an area where the parking is not constructed, and it would fit in there.
Yeah, Pat, the other thing I would offer too is that where the current maintenance building is, it really has just a little bit of work that's done in it from time to time, where a lot of the field house activity is down in the field building where the snack shack is, and there's a lot of equipment down there that's actually pretty hazardous to what goes on down in that area between the track and the football field and the soccer field. So the whole point of putting it over in the other area is to make it more centralized, keep it centralized, and also move everything to that area away from students and away from traffic.
Got it.
That was the point of putting it over there.
Got it.
Any other questions?
I think we might have one question here. Christina?
I was just going to ask you to explain how the current facilities building is particularly old and we're not moving that building. We're creating a new one.
Current facilities.
Maintenance building.
Well, we're not, you're right, we're not moving that building, we're creating a new building. Yeah, that building is pretty old, and we don't think it would move very easily. And this gives us an opportunity, as I mentioned, to create kind of a two-level building that could provide easy access to the fields for field maintenance, and also easy access from the parking lot and the school campus for other maintenance activities.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to have all the plow trucks there, all the vehicles over in one area to service the campus. So.
Okay.
Okay?
Pat, thank you very much.
Sure. Well, let Steve talk.
Here's this. Okay, thanks. I'll try to do this from here. He really knows your campus really well. He understands the big picture and the subtleties. And I think Don's going to be very happy if we give him a purpose-built, simple maintenance facility. That we've looked at renovations and improvements and extensions to that barn many times, and it's not much to work with. So it also, when there are vehicles there, they just sort of spread. So anyway, okay, so let me see if, good, okay. This slide is to show you that the design of the building is responsive to the site because it's an odd-shaped site. And we wanted the building to fit the site and vice versa. So originally, I just want you to know that we had thought that this site did this and this. Is that showing on there? Yes. Originally, before Mr. Wyatt had it surveyed exactly, this concept did that, which meant that there would be more building up here. Then we found out that it was fairly unusual. And it came over here, and then Mr. Campbell's property went right to here. So this triangle became not all important, but quite important. We could design without it, but we wanted to design you a building that had quite a bit of personality and was handsome, but mostly that it was a little kid's building and that its scale was small, but more important, that we didn't have to bring on colonies of mobiles to accommodate expansion. So we designed a building whose second floor is far smaller than the first floor, and that we can expand in several places over the first floor. And that will be designed and built to take a second floor addition without foundation work or site work, without ruining the campus, because construction rips up the property. And so we have done this in several different communities successfully, where we prepare for it, and wouldn't you know it, you need to expand. This building is going to be so wonderful that more and more kids are going to want to come to it. So anyway, so this slide is to show you that the building, its form, for several reasons, but the first is that it responds to an unusual site. We also wanted very much to separate kids from cars. So we had the building stretch over. This is the public, larger rooms. These are the classrooms. The kids play over here, far away from the vehicles. And even the youngest kids, whose area will be fenced in and secure, they're quite some distance, and there will be a gate here so that the vehicles won't come this way. So, as I just mentioned, this is the community areas. It's not a huge gymnasium, it's a multi-purpose room. This is a cafeteria that's about half the size of Mabel Wilson's cafeteria. This is a kitchen, and that is what we call a satellite kitchen. We're not cooking food there. We're bringing food over from Mabel Wilson, which has a wonderful kitchen. And we've talked to the food director, and he says, I'd be happy to do that. He told us what he needed for size, and we gave it to him. So there's all sorts of storage and mechanicals here, and there's an access here. But this is basically accessed only from the lobby. So the way the building works is this arrow, very subtly drawn, is the main entrance. That's the only entrance to the building. Nothing else is open. And in fact, this vestibule is very well controlled. You cannot get in without getting buzzed in. And the office is right here, and they can see everybody who's coming, everybody who's in the vestibule, and then you come in. And what's important to us is that you're in the middle of the school, not on one end or the other. You're in the middle of the school. And so those little short legs of the little kids don't have forever to walk before they get to where they're going. We've designed the building. Let me make sure this is circulation. When you come in right here, under the eyes of the office and the principal, on an everyday basis. You come in, if you're in the vestibule and you're not a student and it's not beginning of school or end of school, you have to go into the office and you have to get buzzed in before you can go anywhere in the school. So this is really a gateway. And as I mentioned, this is larger spaces, but it's also the art room and the music room, which are nice large spaces. Now, in general, these are the littlest children. There are 4 pre-K classrooms, and there are 2 additional flex rooms. In fact, we've created 2 flex rooms here, a flex room here, a flex room here, a large dividable flex room on the 2nd floor, and 2 smaller flex rooms. So everything you see in tan is not labeled. It's available for expansion, for special use, for larger meetings. So basically, you come in and you hang a left, and the littlest kids peel off right away and go to their classrooms. The first grade and the Ks go straight ahead. Right here, the older kids, the big kids, the first grade, go up stairs. The littlest kids go straight ahead, or the Ks, and they have this hall and this hall. And the kids who go upstairs have this hall and this hall. Now, the halls are bent, not only responding to the site, but so that the corridors are not long, long, long. There are areas that have, on all floors, that have glass on the interior so that daylight comes through. There are small pods of classrooms. 3 kindergarten pods with either 4 or 3 classrooms, 4 pre-K pods, and upstairs there are 3 first grade pods. And both downstairs and upstairs have storage spaces, custodial spaces, small group rooms. Every pod of 4 or 3 has a small group room. So you can pull out easily and take 6 steps and you're in a small group room. And that can be used for anything. It can be used for a student who's upsetting the class. It can be used for a special project for 4 or 5 students. It can be used for a one-on-one pull-out. So we have, on the first floor, small group rooms. On the second floor, small group rooms. And for the pre-Ks, we gave sort of an out-of-classroom gathering space, which is large enough to dance in, sing in, meet 2 or 3 classrooms together. It's a place to just go and move around. Each of the pre-K classrooms has direct access to the playground. So there is a vestibule with a door from each classroom going out to the playground. And the exterior wall is glass, so staff, ed techs, teachers can see the children that are out there. In a school we did in Farmington for pre-Ks, the students can come and go in good weather. They are just free to come and go because they can be seen. Even the flex classrooms here are prepared for what's going to be a very successful pre-K program. So that's how we took a school that is available to accommodate between 450 and 550 students, and we broke it down into neighborhoods, which is where the kids live, in neighborhoods. So there are really the opportunity to get to know a smaller group of students. This is a room that's just evolved recently. I don't know if I pointed out that there's no library in the school because this age child doesn't do research and they like to read and be read to. So we created right off the front lobby a room that is available to the youngest children, all the children. It will have books on shelves, and it'll be a place that has soft furniture where you can just sit. It's like a living room or a den where you can just read or be read to or have a big discussion. It's the size of a classroom, but it has no desks. It probably will have a big round table in the middle, and there's going to be a skylight right in the middle above it, because this is one story. The two-story space is right here. Okay, so this two-story space, which is about 20,000 feet, sits over this middle, right here. And these are extension pods. That's where we add 2 classrooms, 2 classrooms, 2 classrooms, and we've come to the conclusion that if push came to shove, we could add 2 more classrooms here, which would be over some of these classrooms down here. So, I'm going to go backwards a bit because I want to walk you through the school a little bit. When I come in the front door and my office is here, the principal is right here looking out at the entrance courtyard. This is a workroom. This is a workroom. This is a nurse clinic, accessible from the corridor, accessible from the office. This is a staff break room. This is a staff prep room. This is an itinerance room, so all of the ed techs, all the visiting specialists can have a place to go. There might be some lockers, stuff like that, where they can have some turf. These are consultants' rooms. This is a strategy advisor, and this is, excuse me, that's a social worker. Now, this is a flex classroom, but this is a life skills classroom, and right adjacent is OTPT, which means all students can come to OTPT, but it's specifically adjacent to the functional life skills students who need OTPT frequently. If need be, this flex room can easily become of special services use. Okay, these are smaller rooms such as speech and sensory rooms, so that if a series of students are overworked, they can go into a much quieter room. This is the play courtyard. This is a quieter courtyard that might become a garden. When you go upstairs, you come to, what is that? Is that you?
No, well, we've been having some audio technical issues, so apologies for that.
Sure.
I don't know if it makes sense for everybody, if you're not using your mic, to maybe just unhook it. Maybe it's, hope that will resolve the issue.
That was a good try. Anyway, I'm almost done. So on the second floor, we created a large flex space for the older students. It divides into 3 500 student spaces, 500 square foot spaces, and it can be used in a 2 or a 3 or 3 ones. And it has wonderful windows, so it's truly flexible. You can have anything, and those walls work quite easily. There are staff workrooms on both floors. There are speech classrooms on both floors. There are staff toilets centered to the whole area. The elevator is smack dab in the middle of the school. It's got one of everything, but I want to emphasize the scale. This is not going to feel like a big school. It is 70,000 square feet, so it's a little under 2 acres of school. But we are going to make the ceilings a little bit lower than in the middle school. And we're going to make the classrooms not boring. They have a little bit of form to them, and they all have views out. We want to make this a space that the children acquire, and it becomes their school. And I think we're getting there. We've got some great feedback from the district, really great. We work with Jeff and Scott very frequently. Leanne has been terrific and linked us to a facilities committee. And I actually thank you for having us work with you on this. So I just want to end by saying you can see how our building sort of fits on this strange shape site. Pat's done, as his usual accomplishment, really small scale entrance. Once the bus turns in, you really look at the entry. And parents can park close by and get to the entrance easily. And it's very clear just by bending this wall out, and that this is a little taller than all the one-story stuff because they're bigger rooms. But what you look at is a one-story building, and what you approach is a one-story building. Unlike the middle school, where you approach a monumental glass wall, this is way, way, way smaller. So that's what we've been doing for several months. I am very happy to be working once again in Cumberland. And this is going to cost us far less than the earlier scheme. Our budget, which the super and the finance man will discuss and Leanne will discuss, is conservative. We are not pushing boundaries. And we have a bunch, we're touching the campus in many places. So we want all of the schools to know, not just feel, that we've paid attention to them. And the vehicles on the campus are very important to us. We really want stuff to move slowly but efficiently. So if a parent drops a student off at the middle school, they can easily get to the new school without going out on Tuttle or Main. So Pat showed that to you. I've talked enough. I'm perfectly interested in responding to questions, so hit me.
That's great. Any questions? Councilor
Hi,
Douglas.
yeah.
This is just something, the company I work for is in the process of building a new building.
Is your mic, sorry, that was my brilliant idea.
Anyway, can everybody hear me?
That's not plugged in. There we go.
Can you hear me now? Okay. This is just kind of an off-the-cuff question. And I don't have kids in the school system yet, so this also might come off as dumb. But entry points in the winter to reduce wear and tear, is there any conversation ever in your experience surrounding some semblance of a mudroom in a school setup?
Well,
to mitigate the salt?
it's a
that
real
kind of
good
stuff.
point, real good point. Virtually the entire floor of the vestibule, which is right here, see it?
Yep.
That's all going to be walk-off mat,
Okay.
which is, it actually has a panel under it that your junk goes through
Yep.
it into that.
It's like a grate system?
Right.
Okay.
And then for after lunch recess, you go from here to here without going through the school. And when you come in, we've got toilets right here, so you don't have to go back to your classroom to go. And there'll be walk-off mats here. So we're trying to make things obvious.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Okay.
Please, Councilor Filson, yeah.
I have a question, and this might not be for you specifically, or it might, but I don't know who's going to answer this, but I understand, and I love this concept of the kind of the reading room that you've created, and for, the pre-K and the kindergarten, certainly, we we've all run a lot to our pre-K and our kindergartners, right? I was just curious, though, I think one of the points of delight for my second grader, but in her first grade year, was being able to check out library books in and out. And so I was just curious if maybe they'll take little field trips to MIW to be able to kind of do that exercise. Okay, cool. Thank you.
That was what we did.
Awesome.
Like a rite of passage.
Oh, sorry, well, I was up. Oh, did I miss something? No. Okay, cool. Got it. All right, thank you.
Councilor Douglas.
Yeah, sorry, one other question. I'm not also sure if this is pointed at you, but what are the safety plans? I know shootings are always of concern.
Okay, that's absolutely pertinent. This wall is going to be shatterproof glass.
Okay.
I hesitate to call it bulletproof, but it stops bullets. On the first floor, there's an exit here and an exit here. So in an emergency, both first and second floors have pretty quick get out of the building. We're considering how we can make the classrooms not at all visible to the hallway. We'd actually like to see if we can do it by pressing a button so that the window and the door gets covered, stuff like that. So we're very concerned with it. We put at the entrance, there will be bollards so a vehicle cannot get close to the school, and they will be in the rear as well. I think the presence of the school will just be across the front, and I think it's pretty focused on the front door. So we can't prevent everything from happening. But for instance, there won't be any trees close to the building that someone can hide behind. We'll push them back.
Okay.
And stuff like that. But we are very attuned to safety. I come from Lewiston, Auburn. I'm very attuned to safety and shootings. So we will pay a huge amount of attention to that.
Okay. And as far as the expansion pods go, what is the timeline? You know, say we don't do all of the work up front, we have need for expansion. How long from start to finish are we looking at? Like, can it be completed in a summer? Is it a year-long project?
It cannot be completed in the summer, and what will happen is that the classrooms underneath the addition, these classrooms, those students will have to move to a flex room because you can occupy next to it, but you can't occupy under it.
Okay.
And I expect it would take 6 to 8 months. And they could happen simultaneously, or we could do 2 at a time.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Can I just point out one other thing, Bailey, in response to your first question that we had brought up that wasn't mentioned today, but was also installing a SRO office just off the vestibule. So in addition to the principal's office and the main office sort of receiving people coming in, there would be an SRO space.
We put it right there, so it has a window and door out onto the lobby and a window into the office.
Okay.
And we've spoken to MIW, and they have a basically permanent location for an SRO, and they considered this to be a satellite. They just need a place when the SRO officer is there. They have a place to sit, get online, and keep in touch. Thanks.
So
Okay.
I have a question for you, Mr. Blatt.
Yes.
So we've talked, I love the expansion, I love the tan, talking about the expansion rooms that you might potentially have. I think that's obviously listening to the concerns of the community. And so I just wanted to make sure I understood the numbers. So based on what Ms. Candora presented earlier, it looked like between Rebecca Wendell and NESDEC that we were looking at around an estimate of 435 kids in the school by 2027, 2028, if this was built. So, but you mentioned that this school was built for anywhere from 450 to 550. So is that extra 100 students with the tan space that you talked about, the expansion space, but not the expansion pods?
Right. The
Okay.
expansion pods, just these 3, are 6 classrooms times between 100 and 120 students.
That's pretty much what I calculated as well. So if you've got about 8 expansion pods total,
Right.
you'd have 16 kids in a classroom, about 128 extra.
You can have more first graders
Correct.
if you want to.
Okay.
And the classrooms are good sized. They're good sized, they have really good built-in storage, they have storage immediately outside, and it's storage that messes up classrooms.
Okay.
So we're trying to prepare for that. And I know that the superintendent is very concerned about having too large a school and too many students in a school. So I would say 550 students is quite a few. But that's projecting out quite a ways. So I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
And we could either fill all the flex spaces, which I urge you not to do, as long as the finances work, keep the flex spaces open and available, and build some more classrooms. In fact, Mr. Valenti said to me, why don't we build them now? We won't need them for a while, unless something really unusual happens here. We'll be okay.
But they could be expanded upon within 6 to 8 months, potentially, right? Okay, so I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that's clear, because there is a lot of talk about development in different towns and
Right.
potentially affordable housing project, and so I just want to make sure that these plans factor those potential growth
Right.
rates in them.
There'll be enough mechanical, enough electrical, plenty of plumbing, and so we'll be ready to go. In fact, this is not boasting, but if you see these toilets, they're right under the toilets for expansion. So everything flushes down still, so
Okay, physics
you.
still work, that's great.
gravity works.
Yep. Any other questions for Mr. Blatt?
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you for your
I hope to
presentation.
see you soon.
Thank you.
Mark, I was going to ask Mr. Blatt if he had any rough figures or budget that you've shared it already publicly, but if you wanted to just talk about that a little bit.
Yep,
I'm sure people are
we have
curious.
an updated budget sheet, and we are at about 49,900. We're 49 million.
Okay.
So I get,
Like,
and it's
wow, when do we
70,000
start?
feet, not $70 million. 70,000 feet, 49.9, and as I mentioned, that includes Pat's planning for the entire campus. So that's sort of soup to nuts. There'll be more stuff to do, but we've allocated money to renovate Mabel Wilson. We've added money if we need to renovate the middle school and add to it. We've got a little bit of money for the high school, especially for security down at the pool end, where it's a little pervious. And money for the new maintenance building, and money for site work and the turf field. So those things are all included. We've been conservative. We have a major school under construction now that came in under budget, so we're feeling pretty good about these things.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you all.
Councilor Douglas, do you have another question?
Yeah, are we waiting to ask questions about finances? I'm just curious about, you wanted, okay, you go.
So, yes, we, thank you so much, Stephen and Pat, for presenting. And we are working on the detailed budget. As was just mentioned, the numbers that we are trying, that we are looking at, keep this around 49 million. And that includes, as we just mentioned, the other, I wouldn't even say all of them are improvements. There's some things that are sort of necessary upgrades, whether it's safety, security, other things that are going on campus that if we're doing this other work that we think are pretty essential, and those details are going to be continued to work out and shared. And so this, I just wanted to bring back up the timeline. So we wanted to share this draft with you tonight, give you some estimates of what some of the numbers that we are looking at and some of the items that we're looking at to include. But the district, the school board, and the district office are going to be continuing to go through each of those items, ensuring that one, it's, you know, part of the long-term facilities plan, especially if we're staying on campus, and to also work through what else is going to be coming up in this process, like understanding exactly what, you know, needs to happen on Main and Tuttle, and just ensuring that we're capturing everything that would need to be there to make this project successful and viable for our community. Cost is certainly one of the largest considerations, but also just the long-term sustainability is very important as well. We are holding the public hearing on the project concept on March 4th. So we'll continue between now and March 4th to work on those details. And then we will also be working with our towns, and once we do have more concrete budget numbers, we're going to work with the towns. As you remember, during the October meeting, each town presented what the impact would be with the budget. And so then on March 18th, the school board needs to both commit to one of the designs, so either the 80 Gray Road project or the on-campus school plan. And so our planned vote for that is on March 18th. And then after that, we will be working to hold more informational meetings with the public, with the towns, again, making sure that we're getting the tax numbers from the towns that we can present as part of the project. And the goal for us right now is a June 11th referendum date. So there will be the informational meetings, and then also having the public hearings for the financing. So those are some of the dates that you can look forward to over the next few months. So any questions on the timing and other aspects that we're going to be looking at going now through our decision in March? Okay. So speaking on public and community engagement, we have a community engagement committee. Megan Lichter's the chair. She just was going to provide a brief update on the things that the community engagement committee has been working on and looking forward to as we continue to move forward with the school project.
This will be brief, but pending the vote in March, the March 18 vote to decide which way we ultimately go. Pending that vote, we will then get started fairly quickly with outreach, both in written form and in actual face-to-face, in-person activities. So after March 18th, what we'd like to do is dive right in with informational sessions or opportunities to talk with somebody at the parent-teacher nights, the first of which is March 20th. And at the high school musical, which is Footloose, which is the following weekend, March 22, 23. Beyond that, then we'll start showing up at spring sporting events like the Little League kickoff, lacrosse games, et cetera, with school board members and community engagement members on hand to answer questions, as well as some informational events, much like what you've done for the affordable housing informational sessions at various times throughout the week, and hopefully some on-site tours of the property, you know, if it's safe and they're not doing construction, things like that.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I guess, a couple of things that I made some notes on just to make sure that people were clear as part of the conversation. The land option that we mentioned as part of the plan, that triangle, the board did vote yesterday to put that forward. That would be just included as part of the bond package, so it won't be something that's separate. It will be included in the vote as part of the bond package. And the same at this point, I know there's been a lot of conversations about the turf field. That is one of the items that's under consideration. The long-term viability of field space on campus is something that we're looking at with not only the district athletics, but both the rec department to understand what the community needs are for space on campus especially. I'm really looking forward to freeing up the space that the portables are currently on. I know we've taken over some existing space and making sure that we're looking and planning not only with the district, but both of the towns around the space on campus and how it's being used for sports. And that has been why the turf field keeps coming up. And right now, it is listed as one of the items that is included in that 49 million. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Any other questions here for Leanne or anyone? Councilor Kopp, please.
Just a question for Mr. Black. You have 4 proposed expansions in the future. Can you give me an estimate what each one would cost, or what the 4 of them would cost? And what is the timeline if this goes forward, construction-wise, from start to finish?
I'll do my best. We think it'll take about 18 months, maybe 20 months to build the building. We expect that if referendum is successful, we will be able to start construction in June 25, right after school lets out. Although there is access from Tuttle Road, there is a right-of-way that we could start some site work earlier. But we will be pushing completion of the drawings and out to bid. Those added classrooms, I haven't given a lot of thought to that, but they are, on the second floor, they're 850 square feet each. Gross square footage, about 950, 1,000, so we're probably building 2,500 square feet of space. New construction cost now is about $400 a foot. Those would be less because there's no foundation work. All the infrastructure is there. So we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years by the time you want to build those in terms of construction costs. But if we were 2,500 square feet per pod times $300 a foot, what would we be? Who has a calculator? 300 times 2,500?
750,000.
Yeah, about that. I think you would be, whenever we build a classroom, it's about $500,000 for a classroom. So you're saving money there.
And I've said this at every meeting. I just hate the fact that we look at future expansion on a new building. I think if you look at it, build it now. Don't look at the future, because I think if this goes to referendum and it passes and you start construction in 2025, 18 months after that, you'll fill this school.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So can someone address that narrative maybe a little bit? Because I think that's everyone's concern, hypothetically. And so based on the data, it doesn't look like that. But can we just talk about that a little bit? I don't know who's the right person from MSAD.
I mean, it's a huge concern,
Sure.
right? I mean, that is why we keep going back through the numbers and ensuring that the estimates that we're getting are reflective of what's going on in the communities now and in the future. What we look at right now is there'll be at least room for 100 extra students. And looking at our 10-year projections, we're not going to get there in 10 years for that 100 extra students that the building that was shown would accommodate. I am curious, and we'll be doing our work, like what does it look like when a elementary school for this age student is 30%, 40% bigger than it needs to be? Like, what are the costs of heating, cooling? What are some of the other considerations that impact cost if for 20 years you don't need the space? We will absolutely be looking at that, and it's been, every board member I know has had a question about this.
And I hope you're right. I mean, the reason I say this, my son has 4 kids. Hopefully he's figured out what causes this.
So it's your family that...
Exactly. I mean, between the cops and the stories, we'll fill the school system. But, I mean, I just am afraid that if we build this, that it won't be big enough. And I know it's cheaper to build it all at once than it is to add on after the
Absolutely.
fact. So that's why I keep bringing this up. I mean, and I hope you're exactly right. I mean, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and Ron, I think you're right, obviously, that, we want to be ready for whatever comes down the road. But I think the plan that Mr. Blatt and Pat have put together does address anything that comes down the road. These are the best numbers we've got for 10 years in both the studies. I know there were studies before that, they were, didn't pan out, but these studies have been done over and over again. Rebecca Wandell is still looking to make sure in both towns she hasn't missed anything, and make sure our numbers are right. The other piece, and Steve, you might be the one to talk about it, there's not just expansion at the new school, but Steve has identified areas at all the buildings where expansion can happen. And I think that's the most important part, because the expansion or the needs are going to be more than just pre-K to 1. They could be. We know what it is 10 years from now, or we think we do, but what about 20 years? Right. Are there areas to expand on the campus? And Steve, you've identified areas at Wilson School, at the middle school, and there's even a place at the high school, or more than one place at the high school where expansion could happen. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's an important consideration.
Before I do that, I want to spend some time with the staff at each school and make sure that what we're seeing is what they're feeling in-house. But this has gotten to a point where we think our plan is pretty solid. And I think, Ron, if we decided to add something, it isn't going to upset the plan very much, because we know the expansion is. But we know there'll be work at Mabel Wilson. We know there will be. Mabel Wilson's tired, and it needs some work, and we're going to actually look at the entire circulation system within the school, as well as Pat's looking outside the school. We did a design for Scott and Bob Hassan years ago where the office moved to the library in Mabel Wilson and the library to the office. And we weren't ready to do it yet, but this might be the time to do that. We've also looked at expansion at the middle school. The middle school has a lot of capacity, but we really need to look at the program that will be offered if it's a 5-8. Instead of we designed it as a 6-8. So those are the things. The program really drives the design, so give us a little bit of time on that. We'll come back and see.
Do you have a question, Matt?
Councilor Bale, please.
I just want to follow up with Ronnie's comments there. 2 years ago, we had a conversation, and the outlook was a 5-year window, and we said, we were going to be at capacity at 5 years window. And so just to follow along with what Ronnie's comments were, excess space, we need to be able to design flex space. You're designing a school for K1, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay K1, and that all of our schools should have some flexibility built into them so that there can be reconfigurations of classes as needed. And then I think my next comment, more than a question, is strategic planning. And you don't have any ball fields, you don't have any athletic fields there, and there needs to be some sort of a collaborative between the two communities and the school district for planning for future acquisition of properties that are looking out there, because we're back at the same, and I'm going to try not to ask this question, but what's changed in 2 years when we discourage you from bringing more congestion to the center of town? And I know the answer to that, but that doesn't help us looking down the road. And those kind of conversations have to happen. How can we plan for the future? How can we identify properties today that will accommodate athletic fields and perhaps a future school, and down on the Foreside, West Cumberland, the entire town of North Yarmouth. We have to have, I believe we have to have those conversations and at least identify the properties for various different reasons.
Make I just, oof, jeez. Yeah. I just want to be clear that if the community and district decides to move forward with the on-campus option, we're not done. That is saying, okay, we have this plan that is happening on campus, but I absolutely agree that the long-term vision, especially on land, this is one thing that I've really enjoyed about the conversations that have been happening between the towns and the district, because I really believe if those continue happening the way they are now, we will be much better set up when things come up in the future. So as a board member, I mean, I'm not going to be a board member forever. I don't even, I'm halfway through my 3-year term, but I would invite future boards to also every year to look at that long-term plan and ensure that it's more than just this physical campus in Cumberland. I live in North Yarmouth, so let's be clear. Like, we're part of this district too, and I want to know that, 20 years from now, there's other options and we're not stuck. Feeling like you have no options is really a terrible place to be as an elected official.
Can I just offer too that I think one thing that changed, well, maybe this is what you're talking about, Bob, was just the acquisition of land right next to the campus, which it was the first time in a long, long time that the voters agreed to buy land right next to the campus. So I think it's been a while since that happened. I know there's been different parcels that have been passed over in the last few years. So this is a good opportunity too. And so I would just add that whether it's somewhere else in the community or right around the campus again, it would, allow us to be committed to a one campus model as well. So there's 2 different ways that we could also look at this.
Councilor Douglas, please.
I know this was conversation back in October, but as far as state funding goes, are we out of that kind of race there? Because I assume once we hit the referendum and whatever's voted on, we can no longer pursue that.
We do have an explanation that actually is the Community Engagement Committee is put together a narrative, and there's an FAQ. I don't know, Megan, if you want to talk about the FAQ the committee's doing, which will provide a lot of this kind of contextual information too.
I can talk about the FAQ and not directly answer your question, but it will be fleshed out in the FAQ as we get a little bit more information. But there will be an FAQ released on the entire new school project, as there was for 80 Gray, that will answer a lot of sort of overarching questions. Why this land? Why this size school? Why this builder? Why, and tackle the question about, are we pursuing state funding or not? I might pass that off to Leanne to answer that right this minute, if you don't mind.
Let's see if my answer aligns with what you're drafting for the FAQ.
You got it.
It's a good little test here. So the program that I think you're referring to is the Major Capital School Construction Program. An application has opened. The rating cycle is 2024 to 2025. The application deadline is August 30th, 2024. And so, yes, if we move forward with this building and it gets approved, then that will not be eligible. The program is more than just a school building. You can also apply for other major capital projects. I've been encouraging, we've been having discussions around, there's other things that we're talking about for long-term that could be considered major capital projects. The challenge that we've been talking with our representatives about, I saw Representative Moriarty here earlier. Okay, there we go. That we've been talking with all of our representatives about is that program has been an extreme challenge for communities. The rating cycle happens every 5 years. The last time, and this is all, you can go to the website, and I'm sure our FAQs will have a link to it. So there's, once you apply, you get rated and prioritized within the state of Maine. And the amount of money that is available for that program has been pretty limited, and school construction just keeps getting more and more. And so my understanding was the last rating cycle in 2017, 2018, their prioritized list had like 60 some buildings districts on the list. And I think they got through the top, let's say top 5. And the reason I'm saying that is the 6th building on the list, because I just looked this up, is a school in Oxford that the school board just closed like immediately. They were rated 6th on the list in the 2017, 2018 cycle. I'm not sure if my understanding, they take 1 or 2 off the top of the list at a time. So over that 5-year period, they start going through the top rated buildings. So the cycle that just opened, they said that the priority list for the cycle will be available at the end of 2025. So at the end of 2025, anybody who applied for the program will see where they ranked on this list. And so the last ranked list, and somebody can correct me if they actually know this, I looked it up, I just don't have it handy. I believe they made it through maybe the top 5, and now everybody else after that has to reapply and get reevaluated.
And where were we on the last time we applied?
So we didn't apply the last cycle. The 1 or 2 before that, we had applied.
We were down in the mid-60s out of like, 70 applications.
Mid-60s out of 70.
Yeah, we were very low on that, and it's, it's highly unlikely that we would get state subsidy, and the reason for that. Yeah, I think it's highly unlikely that we would get state funding for this project, and also the timeline, just because of the mass and the amount of applications, especially in this funding cycle, there's going to be an incredible amount of applications that we heard are coming down the pike. Also, the timing of this, we could be 10 years before we were able to get state funding and get a school built in order to address our needs. So applying for state funding right now, I'm not seeing it happening, but I think there is opportunity to apply for some things that we're looking at for future expansion, though.
Yeah, and just to expand upon that, has there been, I'm just out of curiosity, a phased approach on, I know last time we were looking at some of the financial modelings, but a phased approach in some of the improvements or needs versus hitting the tax base all at the same time, right? So like doing, phase 1, then hitting phase 2, then hitting phase 3 to kind of spread that out along the lines, or has there been any dialogue about that?
I would just answer quickly that we have 29 classrooms right now outside the main buildings between Wilson and middle school. So we have a need that is so extensive that it's more than just a phased approach right now. I think strategically, if these numbers continue to increase and the numbers 10 years from now are at beyond projections, then I think there needs to be a lot of concerted discussion about adding something onto a building or adding another piece onto a building. And I think that's what Leanne was referring to about state funding. There is state funding for additions as well, if you get into that cycle.
No, that's super helpful. I know that's a tough question, and I just know that it's something in the stratosphere that everybody's talking about, so.
And Bailey, you may have also, were you also asking about, in October meeting when we were presenting the numbers for the 80 Gray Road project, just about how, the tax impact increased, and then there was some debt that dropped off.
Tapered off.
Yes, that tapered off. So you will see a similar pattern when we put the numbers, if we move forward with this project, if we put the tax impact forward, I'm assuming we'll also be seeing that pattern because that debt will also be still dropping off in 2030, 2031.
Awesome. Thank you.
I would like to ask one clarifying question just to make sure I'm very clear on this. So NESDEC and Rebecca Wendell, who are doing the projection modeling for enrollments, when you say that they're working with the towns, obviously I sit on the council and I know folks sit on the select board, when they're working with the towns, are they engaging directly with town managers and others to try to figure out, how many building permits are being issued every single year for new homes? How many homes are selling? Because I think that's a big thing. I don't know if folks know, but in Cumberland in the last decade, in the last 10 years, there's been a 53% turnover in homes. So in existing homes, homes that are already built. So, in the last decade, 1 out of every 2 homes does not contain the people it did 10 years ago. And so with that, obviously, comes potentially students or others, but I just want to make sure it's really clear that in her modeling, she's focused on building permits, new homes, turnover, sales of homes, and things of that nature. So if you could just address that to make sure it's clear for me.
Yes, she does look at all those areas in her demographic studies that she does with enrollment. But we also put her in touch with Bill Shane and with Diane. So both managers have been, she's connected with, and then whatever staff they've connected.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I know in terms of our agenda, we've got about 10 minutes left, but in terms of the agenda, we talked about next steps. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Leanne, or anyone else wants to add. Councilor Kopp.
I have one more question, and it's a tough question, but it's going to get asked. How much is the turf field going to add to this project? And don't shoot the messenger, because you know it's coming.
Oh, no, and it will be a line that everyone gets to see on the budget. We're absolutely putting that forward right now. It's $2.5 million.
$2.5 million, and that's part of the $49.9 million.
And what I want to warn you of is the 4 extra future buildings are going to be less than the turf field. Just be aware.
Oh, are you talking about the extra classrooms if we added them?
That's what I'm getting at. Be aware, because
that's a good
last night at our council meeting, we had a little discussion about turf fields, so just so you know what's out there, and I mean, I know you all know, so.
About how much you like them and have wanted them?
No, it wasn't, I don't think I heard the word like.
Oh, okay.
Love?
Love, oh, love, okay.
There was a lot of
I
discussion.
mean, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, so.
I just want to also say thank you guys so much. I know as a newer council member, it's really helpful to gather in a room and to see the dynamics and understand what's going on. And I just hope you guys know how much we appreciate all you're doing. I don't think enough people give accolades. I know how much time and effort you guys put in, and I appreciate you. I know a lot of the community appreciates you, and this time that we all have together, as long as it may be, I think it's super helpful for all of us to understand as we're communicating out to the rest of the community. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said. I think Ms. Mitchell has a question.
I will just add across the way that I have also brought up turf fields as a topic of conversation, so it has not been ignored, and we could talk, but, there's a lot of things we don't know, so we're not ignoring it.
I just want everybody to know that it's going to be a hot topic on the whole project, and you all know that, so.
No, I appreciate it.
Okay, in terms of next steps, I guess we've laid that out in terms of your timeline. And so for folks who can hopefully see that on the screen, the proposed timeline is there. I just want to thank everyone for coming all the way to Cumberland here for meeting with us, and for all of your hard work. Really, I think this is a great looking plan. So I guess we can adjourn 5 minutes early, and we started 10 minutes late. So thank you, everyone.
Who owns this lot?